Ambassador Veclor's shuttle rose into the quiet void of space. The hum of the engine seemed almost soothing, yet his mind was anything but calm. He stared at the fading image of the human station below, lights twinkling like distant stars. He could still see the humans moving with effortless precision, each action purposeful, each glance aware, each movement filled with quiet confidence. He had come seeking observation, expecting to see simple, obedient creatures, and yet he had witnessed a civilization unlike any other. Strength, intelligence, unity, all combined in humans, who were neither overbearing nor reckless but calm, disciplined, and deliberate. Veclor's hands rested on the armrests of his seat, but he could feel them trembling slightly. How, he murmured to himself, how can a species so small appear so unstoppable? Commander Elena had stepped aside for the shuttle crew, but her words still echoed in his mind. They are guardians of peace. They rise when others fall. They act because they choose to, not because they are forced. Veclor closed his eyes for a moment, trying to gather his thoughts. In his years of diplomacy, he had dealt with countless species, each with its strengths and weaknesses. Many had sought to dominate others. Some relied on fear, others on technology. Humans were different. They did not seek to conquer. They did not seek to dominate. Yet, in their calm strength, they held the power to change the balance of the galaxy. He thought back to the moments that had shaken him most. The humans lifting crates that would have crushed any ordinary being. The flawless coordination in training exercises. The combat drills, precise, controlled, deadly even in simulation. And most of all, their gaze, intelligent, aware, unafraid, and unyielding. They are not pets, Veclor whispered. They are warriors, and something more. Something the galaxy does not understand. The shuttle passed through the outer perimeter of the station's shields, leaving the humans behind. Yet Veclor could not shake the feeling that they were still there, watching, observing, learning. It was not a thought of fear, but of respect and awe. These humans were beings who could survive, adapt, and thrive in ways few could imagine. As the stars stretched endlessly before him, Veclor began composing his report in his mind. How could he convey what he had seen? How could he explain that a species once considered primitive and insignificant could combine strength, intelligence, loyalty, and independence in a way that could alter the course of any conflict? He envisioned the faces of the council members, their eyes narrowing in skepticism. Humans, he would say, they are not what you believe. They are not weak. They are not obedient because of fear. They are disciplined, intelligent, and united. They are capable of feats that surpass our understanding. They rise when others fall, adapt when challenged, and never surrender. Underestimate them at your own peril. Veclor paused, remembering the quiet smiles of the humans he had seen. Even as he prepared to warn his leaders, he realized something else. Humanity's greatest strength was not in how they could destroy, but in how they could protect, endure, and rebuild. They fight not for conquest, he whispered to himself, but for what is right. They lead not by force but by example. They are extraordinary. The shuttle drifted through the void as Veclor considered the wider implications. The galaxy had misjudged humanity for centuries. Other species had assumed weakness where there was strength, ignorance where there was cunning, and subservience where there was freedom. Humanity had endured countless challenges and hardships, growing stronger with each trial. They were unpredictable, resilient, and fiercely united, a force that could not be ignored or controlled. Veclor thought of the humans below, now unseen but ever present in his mind. Each one had trained not just their bodies but their minds. Each one had learned to work with others, to anticipate challenges, to act decisively under pressure. And all of them had chosen this path, not because they were compelled, but because they believed in something greater than themselves. A shiver ran down Veclor's spine as he realized the truth. The humans were not only capable of defending themselves, they were capable of shaping events on a galactic scale. Any species that underestimated them risked disaster. The shuttle began its long journey back to the Zrillian homeworld. Veclor stared out at the stars, each point of light reminding him of the countless civilizations that would never guess what humans were truly capable of. He imagined fleets, armies, and councils all assuming that humans were weak, insignificant, or harmless, and he understood painfully that they were gravely mistaken. Elena's words returned to him, soft and steady. They act because they choose to. That is their power. Veclor allowed himself a moment of reflection. Humanity's strength was not brute force alone. It was discipline, intelligence, unity, and above all, freedom of choice. They could be calm in the face of danger, measured when provoked, and fierce when protection was needed. The ambassador knew that when he reported back to the council, the reactions would be mixed. Some would doubt him, some would scoff, but those who listened carefully would understand the truth. The humans were not just another species. They were a living force, capable of standing against any challenge the galaxy could present. And Veclor had seen them. He had witnessed their strength, their intelligence, and their unity firsthand. He could not unsee it. He could not dismiss it. The humans had left an indelible mark on his mind, a mark of respect, awe, and cautious fear. The shuttle moved steadily through hyperspace. Veclor leaned back in his seat, recalling the details of the day. The humans' coordination, their speed, their precision. The way they had communicated without words, the quiet confidence that radiated from them even in the smallest gestures. Every detail reinforced the same lesson. Humanity was not to be underestimated. He knew that in time the galaxy would learn what he had learned today. And when they did, reactions would vary. Some would embrace humanity's example, others would fear it. Yet no one could ignore them. No species could ignore the humans' unique combination of intelligence, strength, and unity. Veclor's thoughts drifted to a deeper realization. Humanity's power was subtle, almost hidden beneath ordinary appearances. They did not flaunt it. They did not need to. And that perhaps was the most dangerous aspect of all. The galaxy had been conditioned to underestimate, to dismiss, to assume weakness. Humanity thrived in the places others overlooked, adapting, learning, and rising stronger each time. Finally, the shuttle approached the Zrillian homeworld. The familiar blue and silver continent stretched below, a reminder of the world he had always known. Yet nothing about the humans could be compared to familiar lands or familiar powers. They were something entirely new, something that challenged every assumption he had ever held. As the shuttle descended, Veclor began preparing his official report. Every word had to convey the awe, the intelligence, and the power he had witnessed. Every detail had to warn the council of the humans' true nature. He imagined writing, "The species you have underestimated for centuries is neither weak nor subservient. They combine intelligence, strength, and unity in a way unparalleled in known space. Their loyalty is earned, not forced. Their power lies in discipline, adaptability, and choice. Humanity is a force that cannot be ignored, and we would be unwise to assume otherwise." He paused, looking out the window at the approaching cities. The humans' legacy, their resilience, their unique strength, all of it weighed heavily on him. Humanity had not asked for recognition, nor had they sought conquest. Yet in their quiet determination and deliberate action, they had become a species that could reshape the galaxy if provoked. Veclor realized he had changed. His perceptions of power, loyalty, and strength had shifted entirely. He had come to observe pets, but he left with a deep, profound respect for a species that had shown him what true strength really meant. As the shuttle touched down, Veclor stood, straightening his uniform. He knew his words would have consequences. He knew the council might not believe him. Yet he also knew one undeniable truth. Humans were not to be underestimated. Not now, not ever. The ambassador took one final look at the stars beyond the planet's atmosphere, and then turned toward the council chambers. His mind was clear, his purpose firm. Humanity was more than a species. They were a force, a lesson, and a warning all at once. And Veclor would ensure that the galaxy remembered that lesson. For the first time, he understood the true meaning of their power. It was not in dominance. It was not in fear. It was in choice. It was in unity. It was in humanity, and that he knew would make all the difference. Liara stood on the observation deck of the station, her large amber eyes fixed on the vast dark expanse of the planet below. The surface was jagged, scarred with deep canyons and rocky ridges, a world that seemed too wild for any being to survive. Yet somehow a human had landed here. The alarms had gone off hours ago, signaling a crash landing near the northern cliffs. Liara had rushed to the control room, her mind buzzing with excitement. Humans were rare in this sector of the galaxy. Sightings were usually limited to distant reports from explorers and traders. Most of her colleagues had only ever read about humans, seen them in hollow videos, or studied their physiology through old databases. But now, there was one here, a real human, alive and remarkably unharmed. Her curiosity flared. Humans were fragile creatures, or so the record said. They lacked the advanced exoskeletons of many alien species and had fewer natural defenses against extreme environments. Yet somehow this one had survived a crash on a harsh, unfamiliar planet. Liara's communicator buzzed, pulling her attention to the voice of Captain Orvin, the station's commanding officer. Liara, be careful. We do not fully understand the human. Contain it safely, but no contact until the analysis team arrives. Liara nodded, though the warning only fueled her excitement. She had always been fascinated by humans, their adaptability, their ingenuity, and their strange emotional depth. Few species displayed such a combination of curiosity and courage. She had read enough about them to know that the human mind could think in unpredictable ways. She made her way to the landing bay, her steps light but determined. The human lay, in a containment chamber, secured with energy restraints that glimmered faintly in the dim light. He was unconscious, his chest rising and falling in slow, steady breaths. From what she could see, he looked ordinary. Brown hair, pale skin, and a slight build. Nothing about him screamed danger or greatness. Yet she sensed something different, something deep beneath the surface. Liara crouched beside the containment chamber, her hands resting gently on the smooth surface. "Who are you?" she whispered, more to herself than to the human. "How did you survive?" A soft noise came from the chamber. The human stirred, blinking his eyes open. Liara froze. His gaze was direct, unflinching, and it seemed to pierce through the glass as if he could see her very thoughts. For a moment she felt an unfamiliar shiver of unease. Humans were supposed to be weak, unsure, fearful in new environments. This one was not. He tilted his head slightly, observing her with curiosity. Liara felt her heart beat faster. She had expected fear, panic, confusion, but not this calm intelligence. His eyes, deep brown and steady, reflected the faint lights of the chamber, and in them she glimpsed a strange confidence that no alien species she had studied possessed. "Fascinating," she murmured, almost forgetting her duty. "He's different." She retreated slightly as the restraints adjusted automatically, keeping him safely in place. The human blinked slowly, studying his surroundings. Then his eyes flicked back to her. There was a spark there, an awareness, a sharpness that made Liara feel both excited and wary. The alarms in the bay sounded again, signaling the approach of the analysis team. Liara stepped back, but she didn't leave. She had to know more. She had to observe him before the others arrived. Humans, she reminded herself, were known for their resourcefulness. Perhaps she could learn something from him, even if only in small ways. As the team arrived, Liara watched them perform their routine checks, temperature, heart rate, oxygen levels, neural activity. Everything seemed normal, almost too normal. Yet she noticed something unusual. The human's heart rate remained steady, even as the scanners emitted faint pulses of energy that usually made alien bodies tense. There was no panic, no sudden spike. His calmness was unnatural, in a way that made her uneasy. "Liara," Captain Orvin's voice called again. "Step back. Let the team handle it." She obeyed, but her gaze stayed fixed on him. As the others analyzed, she made mental notes. His reactions were minimal yet precise. His body moved without resistance, his eyes followed every motion carefully. There was something here, a hidden strength. Hours passed. The human remained still, almost meditative. Then, during a routine test, something extraordinary happened. A faint glow shimmered in his eyes for just a moment, a soft golden light that vanished as quickly as it appeared. Liara's breath caught. No human should be able to do that. It was a strange phenomenon, unrecorded, and completely unexplainable by the station's technology. She approached the containment chamber again, cautiously. "Did you feel that?" she whispered, half afraid he might respond. But he only looked at her, eyes calm, unreadable. There was no fear, no explanation, just the quiet presence of a being who was more than he appeared. Liara's mind raced. Could humans possess abilities that went beyond what science understood? Was it instinct, a hidden power triggered by stress or curiosity? She needed to find out, but carefully. This was uncharted territory. As night fell on the station, the planet's harsh winds howled outside. Liara returned to the observation deck, her thoughts consumed by the human. She couldn't stop thinking about the glow in his eyes, the calmness in his demeanor, the way he seemed to adapt without hesitation. She had read reports, theories, and legends about human resilience, but seeing it firsthand was different. Suddenly, a faint alarm sounded from the containment chamber. Liara's heart leapt. She rushed to the bay, arriving just in time to see the human stir again. His eyes flickered, not the soft glow this time, but a sharper, more intense light. Liara froze. The human was looking directly at her, and in that gaze, she felt an almost electric awareness, as if he could sense her thoughts, her curiosity, her fear. "Stay calm," she whispered to herself, trying to steady her racing heartbeat. She knew she had to observe, to learn, but she also knew that humans were unpredictable. One wrong move, and the situation could spiral beyond her control. The human leaned slightly forward in the chamber, his eyes glowing steadily now. Liara felt a shiver run down her spine. This was not just survival. This was awareness, intelligence, and something else, something powerful and unfamiliar. She realized, with a mixture of awe and fear, that she was looking at a being who could challenge the understanding of life itself. Her curiosity was stronger than her fear, though. She wanted to understand. She wanted to know what made humans so extraordinary. But now she also knew that the answers might be dangerous. Humans, as she was beginning to learn, were not simple creatures. They were unpredictable, formidable, and perhaps unstoppable. The night passed slowly. Liara remained by the chamber, observing the human as he slept in short bursts, eyes occasionally flickering with a golden light. She recorded every detail, every movement, every unusual reaction. She could feel that something significant was unfolding, something that could change her understanding of the galaxy, of life, and of humanity itself. By morning, the rest of the team was back at the bay, preparing to continue their experiments. But Liara stayed behind, her gaze locked on the human. "There's more to you than anyone understands," she whispered, "and I will find out what it is." The human blinked slowly, almost as if he had heard her. And for the first time, Liara felt the weight of both excitement and fear. She had never encountered a being like this before, one that could challenge everything she believed about strength, intelligence, and survival. The day had only begun, but Liara already knew one thing. The arrival of this human would change everything. The galaxy might never see him the same way again, and neither would she. The morning sun barely touched the jagged peaks outside the station, casting long shadows across the landing bay. Liara's amber eyes followed the human closely as he moved within the containment chamber. His movements were subtle but precise, each adjustment of his limbs controlled, almost deliberate. It had been hours since the glow in his eyes had appeared, yet she could still feel its echo like a spark lingering in the air. The analysis team busied themselves with routine procedures. Sensors scanned every inch of his body, measuring heart rate, neural activity, and muscle response. Yet everything appeared normal, too normal, almost perfect. Liara's brow furrowed as she compared the readings to known human standards from old databases. There were inconsistencies, subtle ones that no sensor could fully explain. His body adapted to stress in ways aliens could not replicate, and his mind seemed to anticipate events before they happened. Captain Orvin approached her, his usual calm demeanor masking concern. "Liara, do you see anything unusual?" he asked, though the words carried a hint of skepticism. "Yes, something," Liara replied, not taking her eyes off the human. His body, his responses. They're unusual, and I think the eyes, the glow, it's not random. It happens when he reacts to stress or perhaps danger. Orvin raised a clawed hand in a gesture of dismissal. Human physiology is unpredictable. Focus on the data. Don't let your curiosity interfere. Liara wanted to argue, but she restrained herself. Curiosity was exactly what made humans extraordinary. She knew she could not ignore it. The glow in his eyes was a signal of something deeper, something his species had developed over millennia, a trait that most aliens would dismiss as insignificant, but she felt it was far more than that. As the team ran another set of diagnostics, a small electrical surge ran through the chamber. The sensors flickered, lights dimmed, and for a moment the human's eyes lit up again, faintly like twin lanterns in the dark. The staff gasped, but he did nothing aggressive. Instead, he sat up slightly, tilting his head as if assessing the situation. His gaze moved from one scientist to another, calm, intelligent, precise. Liara felt a chill run down her spine. It was the calmness that frightened her. Most species reacted violently to sudden electrical interference, but not him. Humans were resilient, yes, but this went beyond mere survival. He seemed to understand the situation instinctively. He could calculate, predict, and adapt almost instantaneously. Liara, Orvin said, his voice tight. Did you see that? I did, she whispered. It's not just a reaction. He understands more than we give him credit for. The team returned the chamber to stability and the lights normalized. The human leaned back slightly, closing his eyes for a brief moment, and when he opened them again, they glowed faintly once more. Liara took a cautious step closer. She wanted to ask a question, to understand why this was happening, but she stopped herself. Humans were unpredictable. One wrong question could provoke fear or anger. She had learned that much from the database studies. Hours passed. Liara observed in silence as the human interacted subtly with the environment. He seemed to notice every detail, every movement, every sound. Small changes in temperature, vibrations in the floor, the faint hum of energy from the chamber. He registered everything. And yet he remained calm, almost serene. Her curiosity burned hotter than ever. How could a species so small, so seemingly fragile, possess such awareness and adaptability? Liara thought of the legends she had read, humans surviving impossible environments, thinking creatively when other species would panic, enduring hardships without surrender. And now she saw it firsthand. Later, when the other scientists left for a brief break, Liara stayed behind. She crouched beside the chamber, speaking softly as if her voice alone could encourage a response. You survived a crash on a planet where no human should survive, she murmured. And you're different. I need to understand. Can you show me what you are? The human's eyes flickered again, glowing faintly, and he shifted slightly, tilting his head as if listening. Liara felt her heart race. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was a response. A recognition that she had spoken. She studied him, noting every movement. His gaze followed her, unwavering. His body was relaxed, yet there was a coiled energy beneath the surface, ready to spring into action. This was not just a reaction to containment. This was instinct, skill, awareness, and something else she could not yet name. Over the next few hours, strange incidents began to occur. Equipment malfunctioned inexplicably. Data streams fluctuated. Small objects in the lab moved slightly as if pushed by unseen hands. The other scientists attributed it to technical errors, but Liara knew better. She noticed subtle shifts in the air, faint energy signatures that coincided with the moments when the human's eyes flickered. She realized something extraordinary. Humans might have a latent ability to interact with energy in ways the aliens had never studied. It wasn't magic and it wasn't technology. It was biological, innate, and astonishing. Her excitement was tempered by fear. The more she observed, the more unpredictable he became. The other species in her sector were strong, powerful, and advanced, but humans were different. They could think, adapt, and act in ways no scanner could predict. And this human, this one, was already showing signs of abilities that bordered on the impossible. As evening approached, the station faced a minor emergency. A small containment unit in another section overheated and the alarm sounded. The human stirred immediately. His eyes glowed more brightly than before, and he shifted in his chamber, moving with precision and speed that startled even Liara. The team rushed to stabilize the unit, but it was chaotic. Equipment sparking, energy pulses fluctuating. No alien present could fully comprehend or control the situation. And then, in a moment of instinctive brilliance, the human acted. He leaned forward, eyes shining, and somehow his presence seemed to stabilize the energy field. Lights normalized. Machines hummed gently. No one could explain how it happened, but the crisis ended without damage. Liara's mouth fell open. The other scientists stared in shock and disbelief. It just worked, one whispered. How did it? Liara didn't answer. She only stared, her mind racing. This human had done something beyond explanation. It was instinct, intelligence, and something more, a strange, unquantifiable power that was both frightening and awe-inspiring. Later, she returned to the observation deck, her thoughts consumed by the human. She realized that her fascination had turned into something deeper, a mixture of awe, curiosity, and fear. He was not just resilient or clever. He was capable of extraordinary things, and the more she observed, the more she understood that humans could be dangerous in ways that no one had predicted. Her amber eyes lingered on the planet below. The human had survived a crash, endured the unknown, and now seemed to bend circumstances to his will in ways aliens could not comprehend. She felt a growing respect tinged with fear. Curiosity alone would not be enough to understand him. She would need caution, patience, and perhaps even courage of her own. As the night deepened, the human rested in his chamber. His eyes occasionally flickered with that soft golden glow. Liara watched every moment, knowing that the key to understanding humans lay in these small, subtle signs. She wondered what else he could do, what other abilities lay hidden, and whether the galaxy was ready to face a species that was more powerful, clever, and unpredictable than anyone had imagined. She whispered to herself, almost reverently, "What are you, human? And what are you capable of?" The station was quiet now, the stars blinking faintly beyond the glass. Yet Liara knew that nothing would ever be quiet again. The arrival of this human had set in motion events that would challenge everything she knew about life, intelligence, and survival. And in the quiet hum of the observation deck, she realized that she had crossed a threshold. Her curiosity had turned into fear, and that fear was not born of weakness, it was born of understanding. She understood that humans, in their strange, unpredictable way, were something extraordinary, and extraordinary things could change everything. The station's dim lights flickered as the day wore on, casting long shadows along the metal walls. Liara's gaze remained fixed on the human. His calm demeanor unnerved her more with every passing hour. She had studied species from the far edges of the galaxy, yet nothing prepared her for the strange, almost electric sense that surrounded him. The golden flicker in his eyes had grown more frequent, more intense, and she could no longer deny that there was something extraordinary about him, something that stirred both awe and fear in her heart. She approached his containment chamber cautiously. "Ethan," she whispered, testing the name that had been assigned to him by the control system. "Do you understand what is happening to you?" The human's eyes shifted, locking onto hers. A faint glow shimmered again, brighter than ever before. It was not just light, it was awareness. Liara felt a jolt of unease as though the glow carried thought itself. She stepped back instinctively, her heart pounding in her chest. Humans were known for intelligence, creativity, and resilience, but this was something beyond any record she had ever read. The alarms rang suddenly from the research lab. A technical malfunction had occurred in the energy conduit that powered the station. Sparks flew from the walls and the hum of the machinery rose to a high-pitched wail. The human stirred immediately, eyes flaring bright gold, illuminating the chamber like twin suns. Liara froze. "Stay calm," she told herself. "Observe first. Do not interfere." But observation alone could not prepare her for what happened next. The human moved with unnatural precision. His hand hovered near the energy pulses and, without touching anything, the currents began to stabilize. Sparks faded. Machines quieted. Liara's jaw dropped. The team rushed in to fix the problem, but they could only watch as the human corrected the malfunction effortlessly, using some unexplainable instinct. Liara took a step closer, compelled by curiosity and terror. How are you doing this?" she asked, voice trembling. The human's eyes flickered again, this time slowly, deliberately. It was not anger or fear she saw, it was understanding. "Focus," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Watch, learn." Tapped. Liara's pulse raced. The words themselves seemed to carry authority, not over her, but over the situation itself. The malfunctioned equipment responded to his presence almost as if it recognized his intent. She had heard of human ingenuity, of their ability to solve problems creatively in impossible situations. But this was beyond ingenuity. This was control. A natural, instinctive control over circumstances that no alien species had ever demonstrated. The station's chief engineer, Cairo, whispered to her in disbelief. "Did you see that? How did he do that? I don't know," Liara admitted. Fear tinged her voice. She felt a strange weight pressing on her chest, the realization that humans could be not only clever, but something more, something unpredictable. As the day continued, she observed him quietly, recording every detail. The flicker in his eyes was no longer random. It intensified during moments of stress or challenge, when an experiment produced an unexpected result, when machinery faltered, when someone made a wrong move. His eyes shone brighter, sharper, like beacons. And each time he reacted with instinctive precision, correcting the situation faster than any alien could. Liara realized she was witnessing not just human survival skills, but a species' hidden potential. Humans, she noted, could endure, adapt, and influence their environment in ways that no scanner or theory could explain. And the more she saw, the more her awe turned into fear. That evening, Liara returned to the observation deck, hoping to analyze the human quietly while the rest of the staff ate and rested. From her vantage point, she could see the human in his chamber, eyes glowing faintly even in moments of stillness. He seemed to sense her gaze. Slowly, he raised his hand and pressed it against the glass as if acknowledging her presence. Liara's heart skipped a beat. There was a connection forming, unspoken, silent, and profound. She realized she could not study him as she would any other subject. This human was aware and in ways she could not yet understand. Suddenly, the station shuddered. A minor quake from the planet's surface rattled the walls. Equipment clattered, lights flickered, and alarms blared. Liara's first instinct was fear, but the human's eyes flared brilliantly, golden and steady. His body moved with controlled precision. He leaned forward, assessing the situation in a way that no alien mind could match. "Stay calm," he said again, this time not to Liara, but as if speaking to the station itself. And for a brief, impossible moment, it felt as if the world listened. Machines stabilized. Energy conduits hummed gently instead of violently. Sparks vanished. The quake's minor effects seemed softened, almost neutralized. Liara stepped back, trembling. She could no longer deny the truth. This human was extraordinary, not in strength alone, not in intellect alone, but in a combination of instinct, perception, and awareness that was almost impossible to measure. She realized she was afraid, not of him personally, but of what he represented. Humans could adapt, survive, and influence in ways her species could barely comprehend. And if one human could do this in a contained environment, what could an entire population achieve? What could humanity do when unleashed across the galaxy? Liara's mind swirled with possibilities. The human's calm, glowing eyes reflected not only intelligence but power, the kind that could reshape events, challenge authority, and change destinies. She felt the weight of fear settle deep in her chest alongside her fascination. Humans were unpredictable. That unpredictability was their strength, and it terrified her. For the next several hours, she observed silently, taking meticulous notes. Every flicker of his eyes, every small movement, every subtle reaction was recorded. She watched as he solved small technical problems in the lab with minimal effort. The energy outputs responded to his touch or even his gaze in ways no machine could fully explain. And when an unexpected problem arose with a containment unit, he approached it calmly, eyes glowing brightly, and corrected the issue without hesitation. Liara could feel the tension in her colleagues growing. Some whispered fears, some excitement, but she remained focused. She had begun to understand the magnitude of what she was witnessing. Humans were not only adaptable, they were formidable, and the longer she observed him, the clearer it became. This human's abilities were not accidental. They were instinctive, natural, and perhaps a glimpse of the full potential of his species. When the night came, the station quieted. Liara stayed in the observation deck, notebook in hand, recording every moment. The human sat in quiet contemplation, eyes flickering faintly with golden light. She knew she was witnessing something rare, a window into a power no alien species had yet fully recognized. She whispered to herself, "What are you capable of, human? How far can you go?" For the first time, fear mingled with admiration. She realized that humans, in their quiet, unassuming way, possessed a strength that went far beyond what any alien could measure or predict. And that strength frightened her more than she could have imagined. And yet her curiosity burned even brighter. She would not look away. She would continue to study him, to understand him, even if that understanding came with fear, because she knew deep down that humans were extraordinary, and extraordinary things always demanded attention. The station floated silently above the dark planet, its lights glowing faintly against the endless black of space. Inside, a strange tension filled the air. The crew members spoke softly, their eyes often turning toward the containment chamber where the human rested. The events of the previous day had spread across the station like wildfire. Everyone had seen it. The glowing eyes, the sudden control over the energy fields, the calmness that defied reason. It was no longer a secret. The human, Ethan, was no ordinary being. He was something else entirely. Liara hadn't slept. Her mind was too busy replaying every moment, every flicker of light in his eyes, every calm word he spoke when chaos surrounded him. She had spent most of the night reviewing the data. The readings made no sense. His energy output didn't match any known biological pattern. His reactions were faster than any species her people had ever documented. She sat in the observation deck once again, the planet's dull light reflecting off her pale scales. "He's more than just a survivor," she whispered to herself. "He's something new." A soft sound broke her thoughts. The containment doors slid open as Ethan stepped out slowly, escorted by 2 guards. He was no longer considered a prisoner, just a mystery that needed to be understood. Liara approached carefully. "Are you feeling better?" she asked, her voice soft but curious. Ethan nodded. "Yes, the systems here. They are different but familiar in some ways." His tone was calm, even friendly. Liara tilted her head. "Familiar? You mean your people have seen similar systems?" He smiled faintly. "Not exactly, but humans adapt. We learn fast." Those words lingered in her mind. Humans adapt. She had heard that before, but now it carried a weight she had never truly understood. Before she could ask more, an alarm blared. The walls vibrated, lights dimmed, and a harsh metallic noise echoed through the corridors. The crew scrambled as warning messages appeared across the control panels. "Energy reactor is unstable," shouted Cairo, the chief engineer. "The system's failing. We're losing power to the shields." Liara's blood ran cold. The energy reactor was the heart of the station. If it failed, the entire facility could collapse into the planet's atmosphere. "Everyone to emergency positions," Captain Orvin commanded. "Seal all sections and stabilize the core." Liara rushed to the control room, her heart pounding. The screen showed a chaotic stream of red alerts. Temperatures were rising. Systems were failing one by one. The crew worked frantically, but the situation was slipping beyond their control. Then she noticed something unusual. Ethan had followed them. He stood at the entrance of the control room, eyes glowing faintly gold. The light reflected off the panels, making him seem almost otherworldly. "Stay back," one of the officers warned. "This area is dangerous." Ethan ignored the command and stepped closer to the main console. "You're trying to balance the energy flow manually," he said, glancing at the screens. "But the system is overloaded at the source. You have to reroute it through the secondary conduits." Cairo blinked. "That's impossible. The secondary lines were shut down months ago." "They can't handle that much energy." Ethan's eyes flashed brighter. "They can. If you adjust the frequency first." Before anyone could stop him, he moved toward the main reactor controls. His fingers brushed over the panel. The room filled. With a low hum, and the lights flickered again, but this time not from failure. It was stabilization. The wild pulses of energy began to smooth out, and the warning lights dimmed one by one. Liara watched in astonishment as the human worked. His movements were precise, almost instinctive. The golden glow in his eyes seemed to pulse in rhythm with the reactor's energy. "How are you doing this?" she whispered, almost afraid to interrupt. Ethan didn't look at her. "By listening," he said simply. "Machines speak in patterns. You just have to understand them." Minutes passed like hours. The crew watched silently as the reactor returned to balance. Then with one final adjustment, the system stabilized completely. The alarm stopped. The station was safe. Silence filled the control room. Every eye turned toward the human. His glow slowly faded, leaving his expression calm but weary. Liara stepped forward, her voice barely above a whisper. "You saved the station." Ethan glanced at her and gave a small nod. "I just did what needed to be done." Captain Orvin approached cautiously. "Your people, are they all like this?" Ethan smiled faintly, though there was something unreadable in his expression. "Maybe not exactly, but humans have a habit of surviving. We don't give up easily." The captain stared at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "You have our respect, human." As the crew returned to their stations, Liara remained still, watching Ethan quietly. Her thoughts were a storm. What she had seen was beyond technology, beyond logic. Humans didn't just adapt. They understood things that should have been impossible to understand. Later, when the crisis had passed, Liara joined Ethan in the quiet research bay. The hum of machinery filled the air. "You didn't just fix the reactor," she said. "You connected with it. You felt how it worked." Ethan looked at her, his eyes no longer glowing but calm. "Humans don't always rely on logic alone," he explained. "Sometimes we trust our instincts. When you face danger long enough, you learn to sense what's coming, to see patterns others don't see." Liara nodded slowly. "That's why your species has survived so much, isn't it? You sense danger before it happens. You adapt faster than anyone else." He shrugged lightly. "Maybe. Or maybe we just refuse to lose." Liara looked at him, her mind filled with a strange mix of admiration and unease. She had always thought her people were the most advanced species in the region, but now she realized how wrong that was. The humans' real strength wasn't their machines or weapons. It was their will, their ability to push beyond limits, their drive to overcome anything. As the night fell, Liara recorded her notes. "The human species cannot be measured by data alone," she wrote. "Their power comes from instinct, emotion, and a deep connection to survival itself." Suddenly, a faint sound came from behind her. Ethan stood by the viewing window, looking out at the stars. His reflection in the glass showed faint traces of gold in his eyes once more. "Liara," he said quietly, "you shouldn't be afraid of what you don't understand." She turned toward him. "It's not fear," she said softly. "It's realization. You're kind. You're not just explorers or survivors. You're something far greater." Ethan didn't reply. He kept his gaze on the stars. "The universe is vast," he said finally. "We learn, we grow, and sometimes we surprise even ourselves." Liara stood beside him, staring out into the darkness of space. She knew that what she had witnessed would change her forever. Humanity was not a species to be underestimated. Their strength was hidden behind soft voices and calm smiles. Their true power lay in their will to rise again, no matter how many times they fell. And as the stars shimmered outside the station, Liara finally understood the truth. The human advantage was not in their weapons or their strength, but in their spirit.